So, Rob, teachers at the school did have this special button that alerted law enforcement of an active shooter. The suspected shooter surrendered to school resource officers within 6 minutes. So the school had technology. The resource officers did what they were supposed to do. And yet 4 people, innocent people, are dead now. Is there something more that can be done to stop these shootings, to protect kids and their teachers?
Well, one thing we have to look at is the FBI gets thousands of these a day, literally thousands. And they if there's a direct threat to a school, they call the law enforcement in the school. This one was a general threat. Last year, it was he was going to shoot at schools in 2 to 3 years. Local law enforcement does most of the interviews, so local law enforcement went out. He did have an obsession with school shooting. He had things all over his room about school shooting. Unfortunately, this was in 8th grade in Jackson County, which is just northeast of Barrow County, where he went to high school. So I don't know if that information, because that old school, the 8th grade school, knew about this incident. But did that information get passed to his new school in 9th grade? And did they really have something with this? And his mother, I believe, called the school that morning to warn them. So I think there's some things that do need to get in place and tighten up. But then again, if they go and do these interviews and they do thousands a day, are there really probable cause to make arrests? But then I think warnings and other things that need to come into play with something like this, it has to be prevented.
Yeah. What are the things that you think are the key questions that need to be answered now? And you just heard Jesse ask one of them, and it certainly is a question I have. An IR-style rifle is not something you're hiding in your backpack, right? So like, even how did the weapon get into the school? But what are the key questions you think need to be answered? And maybe for another school that's out there, we'll look at it and say, we need to adjust the way we do things if, for example, there's not going to be a red flag law in our state.
I think a school record with a student has to follow him with this as one of the highlights, that the receiving school has to acknowledge that they've read the file, that there's been an active threat to school shootings in the student's history. With that, I think maybe some type of check-in. Again, some of these weapons can get folded down into size of backpacks, but if that student knows they have to go through a search when they come in, that their backpack gets searched, their wall locker, if they have that in a school, can be randomly searched. All those things happen with someone that's made a threat to a school. Maybe some of those things can start to come into play.
Julian, I've asked this question so many times after every single mass shooting, but I'll ask it again. And I should say that Hillary Clinton posted on social media, every child deserves to head out for school without worrying if they'll come home again. Every parent deserves to send their child to learn without having to wonder if it's the last time they'll see them. Not so long ago, we saved lives with an assault weapons ban. Vote for leaders who will protect our children. We know what the polls say. We know the vast majority of people, the vast majority of gun owners believe in these kinds of restrictions on guns, including not taking a weapon of war to your home, not getting it into the hands of a kid. But does this or any other shooting change the calculus in Congress?
Well, Chris, I wish that I could say that the answer to that is yes, but I think that we've seen from Newtown to Uvalde a couple of years ago to this just yesterday that this has become a tragic reality of American life in our schools. Our kids having to do drills to prepare for a mass shooter, and then followed by horrific incidents like this, and then inaction. These days, almost exclusively from Republicans in states like Georgia, in my home state of Texas, and in the United States Congress. I do believe, though, that each time we see a tragedy like this, that the voices are getting louder, the activism is getting stronger, the push is getting stronger to make change. And in this presidential election, it was also very clear yesterday by the responses of the candidates that we have one candidate in Kamala Harris who wants to actually do something about this so that we don't see this kind of tragedy happen again. And another candidate, Donald Trump, that is perfectly content just calling this individual sick and deranged, and then leaving it at that, not doing anything about actually preparing so that we don't have another tragedy like this again. You have a candidate in Donald Trump that basically is bought and paid for by the gun lobby. And we've had too many politicians who fall into that category, and this is what you get for it.
So, Rob, Julian just brought up these drills. There was a student who was inside the school during the shooting and talked to NBC News about how he couldn't believe this was happening after so many drills that he had had as a student. Here's what he told us.
Nobody thought it was real, and then just hear the gunshots, and everybody get down,
Nobody thought it was real. I wonder if we're also desensitizing our kids to this, or if these drills, in fact, do help. I noted yesterday we were on the air shortly after this all unfolded, and one of the other kids said, you know, we were told don't look back, just run. So they were trying to do what they had, learned to do. Other ones barricaded themselves inside. But what are we doing to our kids here? And what do you make of what he said? We didn't think it was real.
But that's always the attitude. It's never going to happen here. It's a nice small town. We know everyone there. We would know if it's going to happen. And unfortunately, it does. It's happening in every level of the schools out there. I think the drills help. But also, I think some of the drills are archaic, where I always told my kids, I have four children, they're all in their 20s now, but I used to tell them if they're on the first floor, I go into all the rooms and look at them, and I'd tell each one of them, throw a chair out the window and get out of the room. Like some of them where they just cower in a corner and hope that the person doesn't come in. I think that is a play of just, I hope he doesn't come in the room. I think there's some things out there that can be put into play. There's some doors and other sensors that can be put in a school. But unfortunately, this is where we're going to. You have to start taking other action. But my whole thing about sitting there and hoping he doesn't come in is not what I want my children to do in this case.